Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Marketing Monday, Wins and Fails. The only show where we cover all of the wins and the fails in the last week in marketing and business. And ladies and gentlemen, I have a problem. And that problem is there's too much goddamned news in the business world. Every single week, thousands of companies have something interesting to talk about or make fun of. There's too much news. How do I condense it all in a way that gets to you the reasonable and important and relevant information? Well, I figured it out. And it starts with this. No, not the movie The Magnificent Seven. These 7 companies, these Magnificent Seven. Because as it turns out, thanks to our friend Jerome Powell, these 7 companies have risen and risen and risen and risen and risen until they've become basically all of the stock market. This is these 7 companies versus the bottom 390 in the S&P 500. These companies have become so important to the global economy that they're basically all I need to focus on. It turns out for this week's wins and fails, I'm going to talk about these 7, and it's going to cover all the news that actually matters in markets. But first, I want to give you an idea of scale. I like to do this on the show because I feel like people don't understand what I mean when I say Apple is the largest company on earth. What does that mean? When I say they're worth nearly $3 trillion, what does that mean? So here's an example, okay? We all know intuitively that Apple is a bigger company than McDonald's. We understand that. We know McDonald's is big, we know Apple's bigger. And if we really think about it, I think we understand that you could add in quite a few more. You could add in Starbucks, Taco Bell, KFC, Burger King. These are all combined smaller than Apple. Hell, you can even add in all the rest. Chipotle, Pizza Hut, Wendy's, Popeyes, Subway, DoorDash, Tim Hortons, Jollibee, Dunkin' Donuts, and KFC. Every company, fast food-wise, listed on the S&P 500. But what you don't understand is that this is just scratching the surface. See, after I added in every fast food company, I went through every other listed food company, including the ones that own all of these brands. Coca-Cola, Kraft, PepsiCo, Kellogg's, General Mills, Mars, Unilever, Johnson & Johnson, P&G, and Nestle. And I added those in. And still, we are not even close to what Apple is. Apple is worth more than the global food market, essentially. So I want you to understand that when we say big, we are talking about unimaginably big. These 7 companies dwarf almost every company you interact with in your daily life. If you're an investor in the stock market, like a lot of people are, you often put your money into passive index funds that buy the S&P 500. During this year so far, all of the gains in the S&P 500 have come from these 7 stocks. They're up 53% as of June. And if you take out these 7 and you keep the remaining 493 companies, biggest companies in America, it's flat. The economy has had no growth basically for this year if you don't count these 7 companies. Now, recently, they started to struggle. Basically, since July, actually, they've been shedding some of the value. They peaked in July. And this, for a few weeks, is not a problem. For a month, not a big problem. But if it continues, it starts to be scary. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through all 7 of these companies and give them each wins and fails so that we can understand the only 7 companies that matter. Starting with the most affected right now and the runt of the litter, number 7, Tesla. And our good man, Elon Musk. As you can see, they are down 25% from their peak. What's going on with Tesla? Well, first off, I want to give them a win because if you've been to Japan recently, and I'm sure all of you have, you may have seen this. What is this? What am I looking at? Could this be the first ad campaign in Tesla's 20-year history? This seems small, but this is actually a pretty big about face from Tesla. Again, Tesla has long bragged that they reached $1 trillion valuation with 0 advertising spend. This is Elon Musk's big selling point. He famously said, "I hate advertising," back in 2019 when things were on the rise. And now, this year, he said, "Advertising is awesome and everyone should do it." It is in response to the fact that he now owns a company that's highly dependent on advertising. But that's not the real reason they are getting into these Tesla ads. That's not the real reason. The main thing is because of something much more direct, and that's that the profits are way down. Tesla profits plunged 44% year on year because they've been doing big price cuts. They've been doing price cuts to maintain their market share lead. Again, when a lot of new competitors enter the market for electric vehicles, Tesla wants to keep its 50 to 60% market share, and so they drop their prices dramatically to help box out the new competitors. It's a smart idea, but it means profits are way lower. After making these dramatic price cuts, sales did not go up. In fact, they dipped, which is a big, big worry. This is why Tesla stock has been taking such a hit. This prevents Tesla from becoming like the Apple of cars. Because the thing that makes Apple so amazing, the reason Apple is such a highly valuable company, is because mainly the iPhone is the greatest consumer product from a revenue perspective ever invented. The iPhone is like the margins, aka the markup of a Ferrari, but the sales numbers of a Toyota Camry, okay? The iPhone is an all-time great because they can sell a gazillion of them, but they're all extremely marked up like a Ferrari. Tesla needs to keep these high margins they used to have, but are getting rid of with their cuts, to be able to be that extremely valuable top-tier Magnificent Seven company. And so we're worried about that. Now, that being said, they have another thing coming up. The Cybertruck, baby. Okay? It's finally launching. They have claimed $125,000 production capacity. And the first deliveries are arriving in October. So this is big. Again, people said this thing might never come out. It's finally coming out, and they're able to sell it. And there is demand. I think there's like 1 million pre-orders for this thing. Some people want it. It's a very polarizing car. And from a marketing POV, everyone has an opinion on it, which is at least interesting. There's people that really love it, people that really hate it. Everyone talks about it. It's getting a lot of free word-of-mouth association. Joe Rogan loves it. That matters. He has a huge audience, okay? There could be something there. But technically, it's been a disaster, okay? Elon Musk himself on the recent earnings call talked about how challenging it has been to be able to make enough of these at a profitable scale. He literally said, "We dug our own grave." Investors do not like to hear that. He was like Eeyore up there, dude. He sounded depressed about it and said, "We dug our own grave." There's enormous production challenges to scaling this up. And he warned, gloomily, that there's pretty much zero chance this is profitable in 2024. Maybe by 25, but right now the cost of making it is so extreme, they can't sell these at a profit in 2024. The production quality on the Cybertruck also extends to the build, which is seeing a lot of early, negative reviews and impact. It remains to be seen what happens with Tesla, but right now that is why they are the bottom of the pack of the Magnificent Seven. Number 6 is Elon Musk's sparring opponent, Mark Zuckerberg and Meta. What's going on with Meta? You might look at this chart and think, this is some sort of politics thing. Maybe people who voted for something. This is actually the number of states in red that all sued Meta at the same time. This is the number of states that all decided to sue Meta at the same time over recent mounting evidence that Meta ignored internal data that its apps like Instagram were driving teen suicide, teen depression, were overly addictive to children, etc., etc. They knew about these things, were aware of them, and ignored them in the pursuit of profit. And so they're all being sued. Again, feels almost late now that kids are all on TikTok, but for years and years and years, this was the main cause of teen distraction and depression and angst. Again, what remains to be seen, but this reminds me of what happened, ironically, around Juul. The same number of states around this number all sued Juul at the same time, and it led to a dramatic collapse in that company's stock price. Eventually, the parents of America get fed up with something that is causing so much harm to their kids. And so, remains to be seen what made there, but this is something that Meta is worried about. Also a bit of a fail over at Meta is their stance on work from home, which again, every company's up to make their own stance on this. But a few years ago, Zuckerberg said, "We're going to be the most forward-leaning company on remote work." Then, the second the Zoom era of the pandemic was over, changed their mind completely, demanded in office for everybody, which means they have to live near the office, and started tracking everyone's presence on card keys and other tools. Which means if you believed what he said and moved out of the big city, you are now risking being fired. There is a win though. I don't want to give only L's to Meta. I want to give a win. The win is Mark Zuckerberg is shredded. He can beat up any other CEO, all right? Whether it's in the sparring, jiu-jitsu, or the hospital. Because he just tore his ACL. And now, ironically, I guess he has to work from home? Interesting. Next up, NVIDIA! Yay! The good one! We all call this one the good one. Okay, all the big companies, there's one that we know is perfect and flawless, and that is NVIDIA. That is the good one. And I can start off by saying, unironically, they do have an excellent track record on remote work. In fact, as I was looking into the research for this, and of course I worked there and saw this firsthand, NVIDIA is probably the leading company in the world for remote work at scale, at that large size. They literally have forced no one to come back into the office, have been completely flexible. And because of this, they're getting pretty meaningful talent advantage. A lot of people are trying to move jobs to NVIDIA now, probably now because their stock's up too as well, because complete flexibility. They can get different engineers they would be able to get before. So pretty good, pretty good. That being said, fail on this side can either come through NVIDIA or come to Intel, because the war is finally extending to CPUs. A new leak has insinuated that NVIDIA is finally getting into the consumer CPU market and trying to fight Intel and AMD on their home turf. Basically meaning there could be a world where you have a complete NVIDIA gaming PC with an NVIDIA CPU and an NVIDIA GPU. This is a big bet from NVIDIA and it remains to be seen. But what's most important, and what I think is the greatest fail of all, is all of you for thinking any of this matters. Because NVIDIA is not a gaming company. What I need to reiterate is none of that matters. NVIDIA is not a gaming company. We can get hyped over GPUs and 4090s or 5090s or CPUs. None of this matters to their bottom line. It has used to be a gaming company. It is now this company, a picks and shovels company. And if you want to know what that means, in the gold rush, a lot of people from across the country would drive or, would travel to get to these newfound gold deposits to make their fortune. And it turns out that they spend all their day panning for gold, maybe find a nugget, try to sell it, make almost no money, and return home destitute. Most people who went into the gold rush made no money. But you know who did make money? The people who sat on the side and sold picks and shovels. And what NVIDIA is doing is selling the modern day equivalent of picks and shovels, which are these GPU clusters that are used in data centers for AI training. As the AI gold rush has taken over the mind of investors everywhere, NVIDIA is sitting on the sidelines and selling these picks and shovels and making actual cash. And that is why NVIDIA has gone from basically a bit player, not a bit player, but a moderately sized gaming company to one of the top 10 companies in the entire world. Tesla spends $300 million on an AI cluster with NVIDIA. Oracle is spending billions on NVIDIA chips this year. China's tech giant spent $5 billion buying crippled NVIDIA GPUs. Why crippled? Well, it turns out the one risk to this all positive, up and to the right, let's go NVIDIA thesis is this guy, Dark Brandon. Dark Brandon has decided that high-end GPUs really cannot be sold to China. And they're adding more and more and more export restrictions to keep China out of the AI race. And China is a huge growth area for NVIDIA, where they get a lot of their money, maybe 20% of the company. Is there a plan around this? Yes. And that's why I want to give a win to everybody who is sick and tired of the USA v China rhetoric, okay? They're sick of the nationalism. What they want to do is leave both countries and start their own country with their own rules. Maybe with 10,000 GPUs in international waters, creating their own island nation that can sell GPU power to anybody. This is a real thing happening from the Blue Sea frontier at Dell Complex. They are creating a floating island nation, and they're going to sell GPU power to any country that needs it, using 10,000 NVIDIA H100 GPU clusters. So you can live on this island. Now, my only worry is if these become popular and we start to have these floating island nations of GPU power sold for AI training, that creates a new job, a scurvy one. AI GPU pirates, welcome to the future. The One Piece is it's real. Next up, Amazon. Amazon, you know it, you hate it, but you use it anyway. Amazon recently announced something pretty awesome, actually. You guys are all haters on Amazon. They've got to win, okay? Because Amazon is one of the largest employers in the world. They have a lot of staff, a lot of warehouse workers, and they figured out a way to free them up from all that drudgery, okay? They do have a lot of hard work. What is going to free up some of their staff? I love the word free up there. Humanoid robots that will surely free up staff, as in free them up to find a new job. Amazon has been testing new humanoid robots with legs that cannot unionize and just love to work. Honestly, pretty slow though, to be honest. I mean, you could work a human way harder than this. And if it looks inefficient, if it looks like it's not ready yet, that's probably because you're right. Again, before everyone gets so doom and gloom that these things are gonna immediately come in and be perfect and easy to use, I'd like you to go back with me 10 years to the day. 10 years ago to the day, to when Jeff Bezos first gave this interview.
Oh my God.
These are octocopters.
Yeah.
These are effectively drones, but there's no reason that they can't be used as delivery vehicles.
He says, it's gonna be a few years, but definitely by 2015. And it wasn't. It wasn't by 2015, and now it's 2023, and they've just started to give these a shot. This was a recent test ran in Texas this year. Actually, just a few weeks ago. It's happening. Their much hyped drone project is finally starting to roll out 10 years late, dropping small objects on driveways. The thing is, nobody so far really wants to use it. And also, before I even continue on this, let's do a quick detour, all right? See, Jeff Bezos was in this one, right? But Jeff Bezos no longer works at Amazon. He's gone. In fact, he's living up his life with his new girlfriend and deciding to leave Seattle for Miami. So let's give him a win. Let's give a man a win for enjoying his life, okay? Now, why is he leaving Seattle for Miami? He says that it's to be near his parents. That's awesome. I wonder if it has anything at all to do with the brand new capital gains tax that just rolled out this year in Washington that would charge him 7% on any capital gain stock sales. No, right? It's got to be the parents thing. Anyway, he's gone from Amazon, and now the new team is going to get this drone thing done. The only problem is, so far from interviews with customers, they don't like it. Only one item can be delivered at a time. It's often a tiny item in a massive wasteful box. It can't weigh over 5 pounds. It can't be too big. It can't be something breakable since the drone drops it from 12 feet. They can't fly when it's too hot or too windy or too rainy. So far, the only major use case that has been found for using Amazon drones, at least in the test neighborhoods they've tried it in, is to get the free jar of Skippy peanut butter they've been pushing. See, they've made a partnership with Skippy, which normally costs $5.38, but now it's a free gift. People have been ordering a lot of this and nothing else. Innovation, the power of Amazon. Microsoft, the big number 2, chasing Apple's heels. Again, Microsoft is actually, of all the companies we've mentioned, other than NVIDIA, Microsoft is actually seeing real growth. Okay? The AI revolution has been good to Microsoft because unlike the rest of these jokers, NVIDIA excluded, Microsoft did something really smart. Right before AI started to really take off in the public consciousness, they invested $10 billion to become buddy-buddy with ChatGPT maker OpenAI, making them the exclusive partner of the biggest name in AI. And these two have actually turned the AI revolution on its head. Microsoft has begun integrating AI at a rapid pace. They've put it into basically all the stuff they offer at scale to all their business clients, which is where Microsoft makes most of its money. The revenue gain has been fantastic. Microsoft has actually started to make a ton of money off this, unlike other companies, which means Microsoft's actually growing. And it turns out ChatGPT is not only useful for massive cheating in schools, it's actually begun useful for cheating at work. People that want to autocomplete reports for their boss is just as viable as people that want to cheat on a paper at school. Microsoft has been harnessing this to make a lot of money. They're the one that actually stands to make a real revenue off of it. The only problem is there's been some rough edges along the way. See, Microsoft owns MSN.com, which you may know as the place where your grandma checks the news. But it's one of those popular news sites on the internet, MSN.com. And they've decided to lay off every single journalist they had there, which was, again, very recently and suddenly, to replace them with AI. And the early results of that have been an absolute mess. This is a story from The Guardian. A water polo coach who was found dead at St. Andrew's School in Sydney. It's a tragic story. AI took this story, yoinked it on MSN.com, put it on their homepage, and added a fun little poll asking people what the reason of her death was. Vote, is it a murder, an accident, or a suicide? This is legit. This is real. This has to be the most pathetic, disgusting poll I've ever seen. The author should be ashamed. Well, the author's not real. There was a response article to this. There was a lot of articles talking about this fucking mess up on their part. But one of them said, Microsoft is accused of damaging Guardian's reputation with AI-generated poll. And I was like, damn, based. And I was like, who wrote that? And it was The Guardian. Just say you're pissed, bro. Don't make it like they like third person did. Anyway, the problems are pronounced. Now, I don't have the study here in front of me. We'll add it for the video. But basically what they found was a lot of the responses and the writing generated by ChatGPT is stolen at a much higher percent from news articles. News articles is like the most prime training data that ChatGPT has, which means as they fire all news writers and begin an era where all news is generated by AI, they're running out of quality training data. It begins training on the same shit that was created from, which is a problem, going forward. It means there could be actually a decrease in the quality of the output. One more thing while we're in the world of Microsoft, I do have to give them a win. The Activision Blizzard deal went through. It's finally 100% locked in every region, including the UK. It's happened. And their first act as the stewards of the Activision Blizzard brand was to raise prices. They jacked up Activision game prices as much as 2,400% on Steam. You may not have noticed this because it did not apply in the large Western regions. Like if you're in the United States, you did not see a price increase. But almost every other country on earth, especially the Argentina, global South countries, all saw massive price increases. When I hear that, what I hear is Microsoft cares about the world being equal. I like that. Again, to be clear, the rest of the world had what's called local pricing, where using exchange rates and things, they would price it, to be affordable for the local person there. Instead, now they are equal across the world, $60 USD, which means if you're making the minimum wage or whatever in Argentina, you just can't afford any games at all. But at least all the prices are equal, and I love that. I love that. Thank you, Microsoft. Big dog. But their L is the fact that they're only number 2 compared to the big kahuna, the number 1 company in the world, and the last part of this Marketing Monday, Apple, baby. Number 1. What is going on with Apple? To figure that out, I have to ask you to join me in a segment of the show I like to call
What's up, Beijing?
What's up, Beijing? The reason we are going to Beijing for this Apple segment is that is what's most important to the world's most important company. Apple is generally doing really well. iPhone revenues are up. The one threat and the one reason Apple stock has begun to take a hit recently is China. China represents a fifth of Apple's sales and is the company's fastest growing region. It's been growing until recently it stopped. Why did Apple's iPhone sales suddenly start to slow down in China? Well, one of the main reasons is this. The Huawei Mate 60 Pro is finally starting to take some market share from Apple in China. And the reason, other than their remarkably successful launch and the fact that they've made a chip that is not as good as Apple's, but close enough, is that it's become incredibly patriotic to support Huawei in China. And this segment comes from our new hire, Stefik, who has joined the Marketing Monday team to find actual social media comments and information from China to get and translate to help us get actual information on what's going on in China. The concept that is going around Chinese social media that buying Huawei equals love China, not buying doesn't love China. Let's give some examples. This is a guy on Weibo. To put it simply, people who don't like Huawei essentially don't love this country and don't want to admit it. Shout out to the wisdom of our ancestors. I knew the back of the Huawei Mate 60 phone looked familiar, and now I know why. Look, this is the design of the Mate 60. They zoomed in on it and said it's part of the yin and yang. It seems that Huawei is infused with the wisdom of our ancestors. People are making fun of it. Again, this is not the entire post of it. There are some funny memes making fun of it, but there is, especially among the older generations, a feeling that Huawei is patriotic and part of the spirit of China. This is what Apple's facing. They're facing a growing sense of nationalism in China that doesn't want them to buy America's biggest tech brand. Also, additionally, this guy turns out to be a pretty big problem. Terry Gou is the billionaire Taiwanese owner of Foxconn. Foxconn is the company that makes all of the iPhones in China. You might have thought it's a Chinese company. They're actually a Taiwanese company, and they're owned by him. And he has decided to run for president of Taiwan. He's not going to win. But the problem is, China is so worried that he's going to split the vote, so the candidate that is fiercely independent from China is going to win. And so they're so mad at this guy for taking votes away that they are beginning to randomly probe Foxconn. They're doing like random, like basically stop and frisks at factories. They're showing up and like adding new restrictions, adding, taxes and fines and fees, basically threatening him to not run. Now he resigned, but this is a big problem because Apple makes all their phones at these factories, and now they're being pressured by China. So now Apple's facing declining consumer interest from Huawei's competition, and they're facing production challenges. Apple's global business is increasingly being threatened by things they have to do to make sure they stay in China's good graces. And for a while, Tim Cook, amazingly, was able to balance both things and be the people between USA and China. It's now getting harder and harder to do that. And if they can't execute perfectly, Apple's stock is going to take a hit. So we've summed up all of the Magnificent Seven. If you invest in any other company, I have to ask you, why? Just learn about these 7 here on Marketing Monday, and you'll be set for everything you need going forward. Oh, Google. Did I skip Google? Google will, of course, be a YouTube exclusive, which is owned by Google. It's all part of the plan. But thank you for watching the Magnificent Seven, and thank you for watching Marketing Monday. Tune in next week for more wins and fails.